or in Canada. You guys know that. Okay,
What a way
we
to
are.
start.
Yeah, what a way to start. We want to welcome all the Canadians out there, the Global Village, Global Theater. Today is, I don't know what it is. It's December 30th, 2021. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with two of my favorite people in the world, Rob Grant of I'm Probably Wrong About Everything, and Clinton Ignatoff from Concerned Netizen. Boy, the two favorite channels in the planet and actually in the multiverse, not the metaverse, the multiverse. So today's theme is sold out. So it really stems from a photo I took of some punk rockers in Venice, California, holding up the Patti Smith full page ad in the Wall Street Urinal. It's also in the New York Times, and it says, "Don't sell out, sneak in." That's the
Don't
graffiti
sell
on
out,
the
sneak
ad,
in.
and that's from Al Flipside. That's the punk magazine in LA that spawned everybody from Matt Groening of The Simpsons to all the bank executives who used to be punk rockers and now they're bank executives. Excuse me. And there's is that punk rock for Patti Smith, the godmother of punk, to be selling luggage now. And so the other quote that's on that is the job of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. That's Paul Schrader. And then it says, "Goddess save the queen." We know that the punk movement in England was started by Malcolm McLaren, who hijacked a bunch of working class kids and turned them into punk rockers, just like the Monkees. But hey, all the power to the Sex Pistols. I think they're a great band. And I think all these bands we're talking about are great. And that music is a healing force. And so we'll just start off with a few round robin questions before we go into the tetrad for selling out. Is integrity is a hidden issue here.
Hmm.
So is integrity more innate or more invented, Rob?
Oh, I mean, that's a both answer for me. It's innate, but it's also self um centrifugal motion. It's carried on. It's invented. So it's a bit of both.
Very good, Clinton.
Oh, that's a good. Yeah. Are others creating integrity in you? Is that what you mean? Like integrity is not something you make in yourself directly. Uh, I
You're asking.
I'm
You're
saying
asking.
it's definitely it's a human phenomenon. So we created it in a sense, but
Yeah,
it's a survival trait, really.
but your question.
Integrity is.
Yeah,
Your question, Clinton, was directed to Rob's answer. That's
sort
what
of.
you
Yeah,
started, yeah.
yeah.
Because integrity is free of moral corruption, according to etymology in studying what purity is. And so, the words come authenticity, compromise. There's a lot of words involved in this selling out phenomenon.
Mm.
Principles, mainstream. Let's do one more. Clinton, we'll start with you. Are morals more innate or more invented?
They'd have to be invented, I think. Yeah, they're cultural.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Rob, morals more innate or more invented?
It's like that old saying, if God didn't exist, it'd be necessary to invent him. So I think morals in the same thing. It provides us structure and organization, stability. So yes, I agree. I'd say it's invented.
Invented. Wow. Well, we should do a tetrad on morals. But it's funny because we did a tetrad on selling out with our group. So we'll
Hmm.
get into this. You guys bring up anything you want and toss this around like a ping pong game. Feel free. But I'm going to tell you all the answers we got from our group. But first, we'll start with you, Clinton. What does selling out enhance or intensify? You know,
Um,
remembering you don't have to be reminded, but just so our listeners know, it's not what the invention of selling out was intended to do. It's the hidden psychic effects of selling out. Because, all the people, I've
Mhm.
surveyed 10 people who know the punk aesthetic, and I goes, what do you think of Patti Smith's full-page ad selling luggage? Corporate capitalism? 99.9% of all the people have reacted going, well, maybe she needs the money. Well, that's not so bad. Yeah. And I'm like, what? And I says, she's sucking corporate cock. What do you mean? It's like,
But how much money is on the table here? I mean, I do think
okay, that's a great question, Rob. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Even my wife Suzy says, well, maybe she's giving the money to a good cause. It's like, well, go make money a legitimate way, but you're not going to release your financial records to the world and say, I'm giving this money to a cause. She doesn't have to do that. We live in a corporate capitalistic society. Zappa said, I'm a devout capitalist and I love Frank, but I'm just saying that we live in that society, but how much do you have to literally promote it? But just to finish my point was, one person, a really important writer and author in the LA punk scene said, this is disgusting. I mean, only one person out of 10 even made an opinion. Everybody else says, that's not so bad. And believe me, I don't want to make a big value judgment on her and say, oh, you did wrong. It sounds like I am, but basically, Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! had her was praising Patti Smith the other day, saying that New York City is giving Patti some award for being a great poet and blah, blah, blah. And then the whole show was Angela Davis dissing corporate capitalism. I was like, there's something ironic in this show. So, hey, I can embrace contradiction. Sorry to rant on. Okay, now, Clinton, what does selling out enhance or intensify?
There's a bunch of things come to mind. I was thinking, like homogenization towards a norm. Because if you sell out, you got to run towards the thing that's acceptable to everyone, the most palatable, right? The safest area. It enhances something's more machine-like or algorithmic or scientifically calculated about culture, right? As opposed to something more uniquely individual or human or idiosyncratic about a particular artistic creation.
Dude, that was beautiful, because Frank Zappa said this funny thing years ago. He said, when I was pushing my music to these music executives to try to get them to put out my records, they would look at it and go, the guy would be chomping on a cigar and he'd go, give it to Johnny in the mailroom and ask if he thinks it's any good. Then, in the 70s, 80s, they started going, give it to Johnny in the accounting department and have him run the algorithms if it's going to sell, if it's got any legs to sell. So then it was more the aesthetic hippie young kid in the mailroom to the calculated accountant who could figure out, well, if it has this kind of bead and this kind of zipper on the cover on the guy's jacket, it looks like it will sell. So that was good. I love the word safety. It enhances safety in homogenizing the norm. Okay, Rob, you're up. What does selling out enhance or intensify?
Something about, again, this idea of this is the item, this is what you want, right? There's the quantification of something and there's the qualification of something. And to me, selling out is a step towards the numeracy of it all, seeing things as numbers versus as the soul of the thing or whatever, right? Like, we're not just individuals, we're consumers. And when you're selling out that's the idea that you're pitching towards, is the idea of something that's consumable. Corporate capitalism. A good example was heavy metal. I love heavy metal. And there's two iconic bands. There's Metallica, which is the archetype of the sellout. And then there's Dave Mustaine, who was in Metallica, was kicked out and started Megadeth. And according to heavy metal aficionados, or however you say that word, they love they love they love Megadeth because Megadeth never sold out. Yet the guy's made like 18 records. So give me a break, right? We all want to get paid, right? We all want to get paid. So
here you brought up a lot of great words there, and soul is the most important. You brought up the word soul. We're going to get to that. But it's funny because if you put selling out in YouTube, Henry Rollins, who's a hardcore punk godhead in LA and very articulate poet and blah, 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 has written books and everything. He rants for 1.5 minutes saying selling out is okay because if you need the money, that's a duh. We need money, and we're getting money finally. But if you don't make the record the way you want to make it, and you make it how maybe the producer or someone else is saying, we've got to make the record with a better drum beat or something more accessible, that's selling out. So he's trying to distinguish what selling out is. Bill Hicks says it really well. You're a corporate whore if you sell out, period. No, don't calculate anything to go advertise it. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, you mentioned a good point yesterday when we were just talking about this on the fly, how everything, there's services and disservices to everything. If we just kind of take a step back, no matter what happens, you could be a dirt poor artist, but you're creating the art that you love, or you could be, I'm not going to name names, but the superstar pop star that just makes like music that, what is the message here, right? Like, what is this?
Like Taylor Swift or somebody like that, Taylor Swift or Billie Eilish, you could say, well, they're moving, emotional kids whining about their life's problems, and kids are going to consume it.
I do think that they write their music.
And then the kids are going to grow up, and then the advertisers are going to use that for nostalgia. And like, I remember when Billie Eilish was good and young, and she wants me to buy this car. So they don't buy the car because of the ad. This is when McLuhan gets in. They buy the car because it reinforces their identity. That's who I am. When they see that ad, they go, that's who I am. Go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, this huge tangent, but this works with children all the time. As an educator, if I want to get kids interested in what I'm saying, I use the currency, the meme, right, that they're into. So if they're about Roblox or Minecraft or Billie Eilish, or before that it was One Direction, right? You say the words One Direction and you could see the flicker on their brain, and they're like, whoa, this guy's talking about what I'm into. It's the tribal flags, right? Like, I don't want a Tesla, but because my buddy, Joe Rogan, who he knows me, he's got a Tesla, I want one. There's the flags, right? Societal flags.
That's McLuhan did that in his first job in St. Louis. He says, how am I going to reach these kids, teaching them T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound? We'll study comic books and advertising. And they're like, what? You're supposed to be studying their poems directly. No, I'll get to them through their, what did you call them? Flags, cultural flags. Yeah. Okay, here's some of the other enhances we got. Selling out enhances personal gain, neoliberal capitalism. That was Bird. Nihilism. Popularity. Okay, so onward and upward.
It's a funny when for popularity, I'm thinking more like populism, right?
Yeah,
which is not the usual meaning of the word, but it's got to be related, right?
But it's interesting because these folks who do these tetrads with me every day get it, and they knew how to just nail this down to a few words, because everybody wants to explain it. But Rob, we'll start with you. What does selling out render obsolete or displace?
Integrity and
Very
creativity.
good. Integrity and creativity. Okay. Clinton.
It displaces sort. I don't want to be like elitist or anything, right? But I want it's like it displaces the sort of like earnest underground niche culture in favor of leaping to a higher, more bigger generic mass, right? It's like I'm not into metal, but when I think of bands that I know that were over 10 years, 20 years long, and they all started off original with their own sound, and then their last three albums are all dance music, right? It happens again and again and again, right? Right. That's just the direction.
Are you talking about Skrillex?
Well, actually, I was thinking of Arcade Fire.
Did Arcade Fire sell out?
Well, I mean, they became dance music, and
everybody knows Arcade Fire. So yeah, at some point they sold out.
Yeah, everyone, exactly, of course, right?
And see, this is the beauty of music. When Miles Davis changed 5 times over his 5 to 6 decades, people would bitch. And man, when I got into Live Evil, the guy at the record store goes, "This is horrible." Live Evil is my lifeblood. If you've never listened to Live Evil by Miles Davis, it is one of the greatest albums ever. But it's Miles trying to be Sly Stone, and it's funk, and it's not Miles being real 50s jazz. And so he's got a right to change. Arcade Fire has a right to change. That's called artistic direction. But it's also, how do you know which way the direction is going to enable you to pay your rent?
Sure, right. See, the other two bands that pop in my head for the more contemporary would be Muse, but then back in the 70s would be Electric Light Orchestra, right? I mean, right? We're just talking about bands that started off with a weird, interesting sound, or the Split Ends from New Zealand, right? Like that's how they started, with this culture, with this strange sound no one ever heard before, right? But then once they're big enough, it's like, okay, time to pivot. Is it selling out? I'm not sure.
But hold on, Rob, 1 second. But Clinton, what about Genesis? Because that's
a major example. Of course, that's exactly. Yes, I'll say Genesis absolutely did sell out. That's a for sure.
And so what the fine line is, did you give them leeway to artistic direction changes, or did you go, dude, it's evident you sold out because you added disco dance?
I like the new Arcade Fire stuff, even though it's different. I love later poppy Electric Light Orchestra, even though I love the early stuff where it's like classical music meets rock and roll, right?
But with Genesis,
I don't listen to new Genesis. It's from the 80s, for crying out loud. But I know I never got into later Genesis the way that I love the early Peter Gabriel stuff.
Right, but the question was it them getting more mainstreamy soundy, or was it your taste in not liking their artistic direction change?
Yeah, right.
But I mean, I'm asking you literally for Genesis.
Maybe I sold out by liking the later stuff, or I bought in, however you want to say it.
Yeah. No, I think you answered wrong, Clinton. I wanted you to say, no, they sold out. Okay, Rob, you were going to say something, remember?
Well, I wonder what the name of that phenomenon is when you start with that niche sound, whatever it may be, and you put that record, like, okay, here's an example. Adele. Good. I have zero interest in hearing her new album. Apparently she has a new album out. It's the same shit. It's red wine depression. It's nothing new. It's the same
Oh.
SOS, same old shit.
But you want her to sell out, or you want her to change?
Adele sellout, man. When her first record came out. Here's the crazy thing: when that record came out, 21, I think it's called. I don't know. I can't remember. It's an amazing record. So here's a phenomenon: is when that record first came out, there's about a blurb this big in the magazine saying how great it was. Fast forward 3 months later, and nobody can't stop talking about this record.
Mm-hmm.
It's all anybody talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And when it gets to that point, it's like Jerry Seinfeld has a good joke. He says, you got 24 hours in the day, and somebody said he's one of the richest comedians alive. And someone's like, you got to check out this restaurant. It's great. And Jerry Seinfeld's like, great. Nothing's great. Everything you try to make me do, it's not great. It's okay. It's mediocre at best, but great. Like, come on. So he's talking about the hype.
Yeah,
that's
right.
the hype, and that's the worst.
Right. But we get sucked into the hype. And I think that there's something, for me, there's a connection here between I interviewed this band, Autopilot Off, and they became quite successful. And the guy was saying how he's now a nurse. He works as a nurse in New York. He gave it all up. He's like, no, I want to be a nurse. I'm way happier. I got kids. Anyways, he described when they did their first show, and he's like, he had no idea their influence because this is like the early 2000s, and the curtains open up, and all these kids are there to see him. And he's the frontman. He's the singer, and he looks at his buddies, and he's describing the slow motion. And then they just start playing. Like he's spellbound by his influence. And then their music gets put into video games, into films. And it's like there's a weird vortex that they enter. Mm-hmm. And it's like, is he selling out, or is he being sold out? Like what is that phenomenon that's happening there? Is because people like what's being created here and they want more of it. And then it's like, well, how do we keep producing what they want? And it's almost like with Adele, it's the same thing. Is it, this is just going to be some jazzy, depressive breakup music, but it caught on like fire. Right. So was that Adele selling out, or was that it just being completely consumed?
It's the hype. It's the hype of the machinery behind them. So they can
the hidden psychic effects.
You can release your music. It's like me saying the Eagles killed country rock, and most people love to hate.
Or did they create it?
No, they did not. Fucking Graham Parsons did, but help. But it's that. Agreed. It's not so much that I hate the Eagles per se. It's what happened to them in the 80s when classic rock came in, and classic rock used them so that everybody could get married to their music or have their first date. And it became this like new sphere of what's happening in the environment. So the pop culture is created by the consumer culture, which is it's what Frank Zappa was the only one in the 60s to satirize, was Mad Men, which is all McLuhan related. Mad Men, which is Madison Avenue selling hippies. I became a hippie because I saw in Life magazine. I was like, wow, that's what I want to be. See, it was sold to us. It's just like beatniks were sold to us through TV. And that's not a bad thing, because once we were beatniks, which are beat wannabes, then we might backtrack and figure out that it came from Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, and we learned the roots of it, who didn't want to sell out, but they're all dying and they need money. So they go, hey, dude, if you do an ad for books, like someone said, well, Patti Smith might have books in her suitcase because she's already sold out. She sells books. Is selling books the same thing as selling luggage? So what? No, and not Clint. What?
Yeah, sorry. I've just this. I think we should think of this like a difference between supply side economics, and maybe this isn't exactly the right word, but it's like there's when we got a whole bunch of this thing to sell you, and
Supply and demand.
we're gonna yeah. But so is the control on the supply side, where it's like, well, I've got 17 different people that I'd love to sell to you, and I'm gonna make them into what it is I think you want, or I'm gonna change you into the sort of consumer who wants what I have, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna use advertising and culture and all these things to shape the minds of the consumer to want what I already happen to have a lot to sell them. And then, like we were saying about someone like Adele, for instance, if you start off, if your first album goes huge out of the blue, that means you had something. The demand for what you had must have been in like real, already out there, not created by some cynical scheme. It was what people didn't know they want until they heard it, and then their eyes, oh my god, this is awesome! I didn't even know I wanted this, right?
Yeah.
People
But
don't know,
that's also
right?
like
What they
Malcolm,
want
Malcolm
sometimes.
McLaren, Malcolm McLaren realizing that Yes and ELP were playing too many notes and too nice, and he said, "Why don't we fucking revert to punk rock, which is garage rock, and just 3 chords of a guy screaming, and they don't have to know their music?" So he helped create it, and then it fed into what these people said, that's who I am. So it's not bad that Malcolm McLaren did that. And I want to tell you the Malcolm McLaren story that really illustrates this is these people who are punks, and let's say punks stand for anti the man and anti Main Street, because
anti-parents.
They literally said, Clinton, because when I asked you, did you ever get into punk? You said no. They literally said, we hate Yes and we hate ELP and we hate ELO. We want real guts music. So Malcolm McLaren died. His son has all his memorabilia and recordings of the Sex Pistols, that were never released and all this stuff. And he says, I'll show punks what punk mentality is. He put all his stuff on a boat, put it in the Thames River in London, and burned it all in the middle of the river. And he says, now that's punk rock. Now, in essence, all that vinyl burning was doing harm to Mother Nature.
Oh wow!
He could have sold, he
Huh.
could have sold all the stuff and given the money to punks who needed rehab, or he could have faked burning it and take the money and given it to a good cause. There's many alternatives, but basically most punk rockers who are hardcore will go, that was punk rock.
Yeah.
What he did. But there's variations on a theme. And so it's just like when Patti Smith sells luggage, it's not for me to judge her. It's for me to analyze and do tetrads on it to suss out the bigger picture like we're doing. Go ahead, Rob. What were we going to say?
Okay, so Patti Smith, I'll be honest, you guys are way smarter than me. I have no idea who this person is. So if I saw this bitch selling luggage, I'd be like,
don't say that word. Yes,
I don't know who she is. I don't know who she is. But if I saw this person, I meant to say person. If I saw this person selling luggage, I'd be like, great, cool. She's selling luggage. Obviously, there's a reason why they're using her to sell luggage. They're trying to pull somebody into buying things.
Because she's made
what's the point?
Snowbirds, retirees who know who Patti Smith is, who have to go to Florida every winter.
But dude, you
that's the demand.
One thing is she called Finnegan's Wake Sumerian text. She's a big fan of the Wake. She comes directly out of the symbolist.
That's not what the luggage has to do with it, though, Jerry.
Yeah,
she's got a mouth to feed, Jerry.
But they're all these people my age look up to her as like a leader, and Amy Goodman plays her Power the People, and she married the MC5's guitarist who was
so she's like a civil rights person. She's a big deal.
Oh, she's
activist songs and music during that era,
and now she sells luggage.
Well,
I find the train of thought hard to follow, is all I'm saying. Right? I don't know these people.
Right. It's all right. And it's good.
But if I saw Dave Mustaine selling toilets, I'd be like, what the fuck is this?
Right. it's
the lead
very
singer of Megadeth. I mean, what
it's
the what
very
is he doing?
similar. If Megadeth's guy was selling anything that's not related to music,
Music,
you
yeah.
would question it. So that's what we're doing. So the next one, but let me just tell you what the obsolescence on the other people were. What does selling out render obsolete or displace? Naivety, followers, crusty punks. You know what crust punks are? Crustafarians. You know,
Crustafarians.
Trustafarians are kids who have dogs and patches and they sit in the urban cities like they're homeless gutter punks, they're called. And they all come from rich families usually.
Yeah.
It
Have
also
you checked the
renders
price of knee-high leather boots with spikes on them lately? I mean,
right. A very good example, Clinton. Yeah.
okay.
So they have to have their uniform. And here's another one. Duncan said, what is selling out displaced? Trust, blows against the empire, cookie cutter reviews, cheap seats. So that was good. Okay,
Cheap
Clint.
seats.
Yeah,
It renders cheap seats
well,
obsolete.
that's the thing, because there's multiple when you
That's
say
great.
the word sell out, it's ironic that it also means if Megadeth plays an arena and it's full, they're sold out.
Yeah.
But
They've
you
done
don't
their job. Yeah.
But Metallica sold out and they sold out the auditorium. They sold out their integrity and sold out. So it's a funny word that has many. And then when you see the way I spelled it for our session here, sold out.
Yeah.
Okay, so Clinton, you're up. What does selling out retrieve? What does it bring back that we got rid of?
Okay, I have to think of what context this
Yeah, we're not
it
saying
brings
sell
back
out
the aristocracy,
Yes.
the royal court,
the royal aristocracy, the royal court.
the society. Like the word society used to mean the few rich people who had time to go to balls and parties and be notable while everyone else was a serf working all day, right? Like this is like hardcore, right? And in the last 150 years, it's been like, no, we're all society. Like society means everyone. We all take part. But it's like, no, there's a them, and everyone knows them, and then there's the anonymous us, which is everyone else, right?
Yeah,
that's just class, more explicit, I guess. Class distinctions, something like that.
Class distinction is really a good answer, and it's very intense because this is what cutting edge new art forms are doing. They're like, right now, the biggest thing is like NFTs in the art, or one big thing is NFTs in the art world, where there's nothing existing and you're buying it. So that's an investment. Well, all art has been, this week we've interviewed two big art people, a gallery person and an artist. And we touch on this a little, but it's what is the value of art? Why do you make art? But in the long run, art is a big capitalistic thing. It's like, it has its roots in humanness and grounded, but the kids who are using NFTs to create a new thing in art are the cutting edge. But it's easy for us to say, no, you're just using it for money. Go ahead, Clinton.
They are right. I mean, the most cynical viewpoint
money
people take for art is it's all money laundering.
Yeah.
Right. And or it's all, modern art is like you know those people who would say like Picasso and Jackson Pollock, the guy who throws paint on splatters everywhere.
He's a raging alcoholic.
No doubt. But and it's all worthless and designed to destroy people's psyche so they don't recognize the beauty of a real art like Michelangelo or something like this, right? Or the realism, right? I wouldn't go that far.
Right.
But when it comes to NFTs and artificial scarcity, oh my god, it's entirely
artificial scarcity.
It's a tulip Right. I mean, they're like with vinyl albums, you can only make so many. There's a real physical scarcity, and then you get cassette tapes, and now those are a lot cheaper. And now you can make copies of your album and play them in the car. And now it's like, ooh, the scarcity's been lessened. And then with Napster, now there's zero scarcity imposed on art reproduction. And then the whole thing about Bitcoin and cryptography is, as opposed to like helping people, maintain privacy, it's basically used to reinforce and bring back the scarcity that was lost with the technological changes.
Beautiful.
And there's another thing too. You were
Go ahead.
talking about Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer as like being like really sophisticated, highbrow progressive rock bands with like crazy noodling, and Rick Wakeman's got like 6 synthesizers at the same time, right? and so you said that punk was a reaction against that. Anyone can start a punk band with like a couple $100 investment. No one can create a Yes album until probably just the last 5 years of cheap computer interfaces and powerful computer synthesizers.
Production value.
Production. Yeah,
that's a good point. But one thing you said that really evoked, Warhol said, and I do believe Jackson Pollock, like many, is one of the most important artists in modern art, and I can understand why people think it's bullshit. And
why is that? Why is that?
When you say, Rob, he was a drunk. Well, all artists have their failings and their strengths, but he really changed. If you study the history of where Pollock came out of and what he did, it's important. But there's also great documentation on how abstract expression was used by the CIA. So it's a big picture and a big thing you brought up. But Warhol said something that's important, and I do believe he is one of the most important artists to be able to talk about it and to do it. But he wasn't like talking in a highbrow way about art. He said, business is the new art form. So we want to say, oh no, art is when you have the skill to take a paintbrush and do something with it. But he's saying, no, the skill is creative accounting. So we realize that there is a skill, and this is where people love to hate Damien Hirst. He goes, skip the middleman.
It sounds like you're endorsing the beauty of Donald Trump's art of the deal.
That is, in essence, I'm not endorsing it, but I'm saying it is part of what happened. It's the cause and effect thing. It's part of what happened. And then how do we examine why it happened?
So the elitists, okay, McLuhan was a total elitist in choosing what's art. And I say elitist as opposed to the general idea, right? Like everyone can be an artist and anyone can make art, and art is about expressing yourself. And I was traumatized and I made art as therapy, art this, right? Art as expression, art as, right? And then there's this very elitist view of art that McLuhan got from these poets, which is, no, art is precisely a thing made to train people's perception to see what's really going on. So if the art has to be not personal expression, but this thing that you look at and you go, what am I looking at? What am I looking at? And the work of looking at it or hearing it or experiencing it forces a person to, change their perception of the whole world in a way that they carry that change around with them now, right? And it takes a very sort of special genius to create something which is a mind puzzle that people mature by solving for themselves as they put it on. It's uncomfortable a little bit and they grow into it and they're like, okay, that wasn't so bad, and they're like, now that made me right, that opens my vista on something else, right? It's a very specific definition of art, and I don't think NFTs fulfill that function, right? It's more like
they do, Clinton, because they are training us to re-perceive what they're doing to us. So you're the proof of it. You're thinking about why you're making a value judgment on them, and I'm for you. I'm both. I think we have to give them a little break, that they're doing something, that there's some Some of them are guerrilla, underground, revolutionary,
Yeah.
subversive NFTs.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't. So if only we go, I want to diss the mainstream NFTs, I'm all for you. But if we study the subversive NFT people, we might see that they're doing something that you can flip a breakdown into a breakthrough. Because if
Well,
everything, go ahead.
I'd say the whole idea, the whole medium itself is a sellout.
Yeah.
Let's look at selling out as
Yeah.
I'm going to create art that as people learn and grow into it, they get further lost from something that's real.
Yeah.
And then creating good art, to use a value judgment, like to be kind of a snob. Good art is something that as you put it on and you grow into it, somehow you become more awake, a better person, like, just more aware of what's going on around you, more freed from buying into sellouts, more liberated from the most cynical parts of the market or culture industry.
Well put, Clint. Well, hold on 1 second, Rob. The guy I interviewed yesterday, you might want to listen to it, Jeffrey Valance. He sort of invented or helped propagate infiltration art. And that's what, if there's people who are infiltrating NFTs, as you know, we might agree that McLuhan says everything humans invent have services and disservices. Are you saying of all the inventions on earth, NFTs have no services?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I rest my case. You're wrong, Clinton. It has services, but I'm glad you're holding your ground.
Stubbing your toe until it's bloody has the service of teaching you some anatomy and then the existence of pain. But I think there's better ways to learn the lesson.
Right. Okay, Rob.
I mean, the NFTs are so confusing, right? Because it's purely speculative. It's there's a really good book I'm reading, Delusions of Crowds or something like that. And they talk about the original stock market, the South China bubble in France and the East India Trading Company in Britain, and how they were selling stocks. And some of the stocks that they were selling, it would tell you what it was on the stock, because you're investing in this idea that it's going to turn itself into something. That's the idea of a stock. And one of these stocks that people bought into was so incredibly vague. It said something like, for a service that is yet to be decided what is. That was the name of the stock. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And people were like, I got to get that. And this is like 300 years ago. And it created a mania.
That's analog NFTs.
That's what I'm saying is that I think that NFTs might be a thing that we don't really even understand them yet.
Right.
But here they are. And it's kind of like I don't know. There's an interesting mass effect that's going to come from these NFTs. But what I was going to say before, you're talking about good art and you're making jokes there, of course. But there's something about, why is it that the most popular art, if this is an observation, some of the most popular art is the most passive. It's not very active. Like elevator music.
If you look
for
for
example.
If you look to like the answers I want to jump to all come from like classical psychoanalysis, right? And so it's like, it's really right. It's sort of like we've got this inertia, this death drive to always want to crawl back into the womb again, or to sleep in and to stay in bed curled up in the fetal position, right? It's just our natural animal desire all the time. And then walking around and doing stuff and exerting yourself and taking risks and plunging into the unknown every day is a total violation of our id. That's not at all what our animal, what our instinctual, what our the most comfortable we ever were when we were alive, which was the first 4 or 5 years of our life when we're being carried around and fed with a spoon. And we didn't even have to lift to our own mouths, right? We really want to go back to that, and we always will, And then that gets so
we don't want to be engaged.
We don't want to. No.
We want to be disengaged.
No, all of like healthy culture, like all of civilization is a big intricate plot to try and subvert your animal desire to remain a child forever. And civilization falls apart when we stop doing all these rituals all the time to fight our own animal nature to actually be brave and stand our ground and defer gratification, all these things.
That's why, Clinton, you're standing your ground on NFTs, and I respect you for that. But it's flips to Auden, the poet, who said the mystery, and mystery is a key word, the mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. So if we watch Clockwork Orange, does it make us go beat up winos, or does it alleviate us of our need or thought, man, I'd love to beat up that wino? So we don't know what art does to us, but we want to think, oh, it's good. It brings love to the world, or it like Marshall, you were saying, it helps train our perception. It helps us grow aware, like Finnegan's Wake makes you aware that you're reading a book because it's unreadable. So it makes you aware you're reading a book. So that's great art is manipulative satire.
Okay, so if art is something that contributes to the feeling of group or the feeling of sharing a culture with other people, right? I mean, at work, I'm always talking about TV shows people are watching on Netflix, or the video games they're playing, or the sports that they're watching comes up a lot in conversations with customers and stuff, right? Art is often, and I mean entertainment, but art is the things that we want to grow into the same world as everyone else with. We sort of enter society through sharing all of this culture with each other. So we're growing into each other, but are we growing into each other and the world too, like the real world, or is everyone growing together into a shared hallucination or a shared dream, right? This is the whole like Matrix allegory thing people like to talk about now, like, oh, we need to come together, but yeah, what are we coming together about? If you're a social constructionist, you say, oh, we're coming together about all the things we're gonna say is true until they become true, and we're gonna deconstruct those ideas and make them go away, because everything's just ideas, and whatever we all believe together we make true by believing it together, right?
It's
and then there's
both.
Clinton,
it's both, because I'll give you proof. I always said sports was invented in America so you could brainwash all these guys to go to their local bar, drink beer, and not worry about political situation. And it was like a brainwashing thing to find a commonality of and it's like hockey, whatever sports. And then I said no, because what they do is they go to the bar, they drink the beer, the ball game's on, or the hockey match is on the TV, and then they start talking about politics. So it works both ways. You can't just say it only brainwashes people. Like if you put a sports bar in every corner, you'll brainwash all your sheeple to not realize the government's pulling the wool over their eyes. Because that's where the revolutionaries might start talking.
Well, it's a big game of nudging people as crowds or as herds, right? Because it's never 50-50. You just need to make sure it's 60-40, putting people to sleep. Maybe that's a cynical thing to say. I'm not sure if we're getting further away from the point.
Did Battle of Algiers, the 60s fake documentary that's called fiction, did it help the Black Panthers as a training film on how to be revolutionaries? They used it as a training film. Or did it help Bush's cronies to suppress revolutionaries because they used it as a training film? So that's the perfect example of the film that doesn't quite tell you I'm pro this or anti that. It said this film lays it out, and we could, like, we watched
this is what revolutionary activity looks like in practice.
This is the Anatomy of the Murder, Otto Preminger's film with Jimmy Stewart. They use it to train lawyers, and you watch it and you can see how it shows you how a courtroom operates, and it's a good training film so it's recreating something that already exists. And of course it has a leaning because they want to sell tickets to the movies. That's what the bottom line is. They're not just like, I'm going to create art. I don't care about, you know, there's some people who are idealistic. It's just like, why do we do these podcasts? Is anybody shoving money down our throats on Patreon here?
No.
Not yet. No.
Thank God. And if they did, would we be ruined? Then we'd be fucked. We go, oh no, we got to do another one on Adele. Okay.
Right, because what we're doing, we're reinforcing something. You do what am I trying to say here? If you get feedback on something, you're like, oh, I got to do more of that. Like if you're a comedian and you say a joke, you got all these 5 different jokes and you say each one, but only one gets laughs. You're like, oh, I'm going to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, though, is that no audience is the same. Every audience is different.
That's good.
So you could try those 5 other jokes, and maybe that one that you had a laugh there, you go to a different room, you try them there, and your other 2 jokes land. And then you're thinking, well, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
What's the rhyme? What's the reason?
Right. But that's why we do the tetrad, because there's no right or wrong answer. So
Exactly.
Rob, what does a sellout retrieve? You know, Clinton said aristocracy and royal court. That was good. What does it retrieve?
Retrieve. It almost seems to me that what it retrieves is the past, and this sort of it retrieves the ideal. It retrieves the ideal. And it harkens back to, you know, when we were just the story of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the creators of TMNT, is one of the greatest stories I've seen that needs to be made into a film. These were these guys, and they're like, let's make radioactive turtles. They're like, that sounds dope. And they must have been smoking massive amounts of weed to have come up with this amazing idea that only like it's an amazing idea. Like it makes 0 sense, but let's come up with this idea and let's have fun with it. And guess what? They had tons of fun. They had so much fun that people were like, whoa, let's get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They made tons of money. They sold the rights to their products, and they were best friends. And then they hated each other after that. And now here's the cool point is now they're getting back together and they're doing art again. But it started out as something very fun, and then money got involved.
Fun is important. Okay, so now here's the other retrieves. Selling out retrieves patents, intellectual property, contract law, tried and true plans, gold records. Okay, so now we're on the last step. Rob, if you take selling out, press it to an extreme, what might it flip into?
The Western economic system.
I was going to say more fun. Okay, go ahead, Clinton.
You sell out so much. Oh, you buy into your own. You buy into your own. New fake self as authentic. You know, you like I'm sure there's celebrities who. What's that comedian who got huge on HBO being the greaser guy who made all those misogynistic
Andrew Dice Clay,
right?
Good
so
example.
It's like he's a comedian and he's young and he's cracking these horribly sexist jokes, but his character is, I'm a greaser from the 50s when everyone was sexist, so I can say these sort of things, right? And he's killing it, he's slaying it, and you can see in his early like stadium size shows where he's like 22 or something, I'm guessing, and he's cracking he's saying this horrible shit that would be funny because that's exactly what, you know, some dumb male in the 50s would think, right? It's a shtick, right? But he's like visibly shook on stage, like he gets a laugh and it's so powerful that he like breaks character for a second. It's like, oh fuck, and then he's got to get back into the role, right? And it's like, okay, keep it going, right.
It's a really good example,
right? It's like you can tell he's just a young man with a shtick who's freaking out at how, like, he's watching the men in the audience piss themselves laughing, and he's watching the women in the audience look at their husbands in disgust and start like hitting them, right? Like smacking their husbands in the side of the head. Like, how dare you laugh at that, right? It's like 1992, 1993 or something, right?
Yeah.
And
No,
like
his whole
now it's
path,
like he is that guy. He just is that guy. He literally bought into
right.
the
And
shit.
Yeah.
then
He's become his
He's
joke.
become the thing. Yeah, exactly. Right. He
Yeah.
went through the looking glass, and it's like it worked.
See,
for so long.
that's the tough thing, is that like, I love Cannibal Corpse.
Mhm.
Don't ask me why. But Cannibal Corpse, the lyrics, you look at that and you're like, what in the fuck happened to these people that they're singing Hammer Smashed Face, and it's about smashing someone's face with a hammer? And then you see these guys in interviews and they're like, yeah, I really like hanging out with my kids and you know,
Yeah.
playing toys with, and you're like, whoa, I'm getting some serious cognitive dissonance here. Like, you're supposed to look like a serial killer and you're smiling, cracking jokes in this interview. There's an example of somebody who did not become
Yeah.
what
Right.
they are.
Somehow they maintained this inner
Yeah.
division
I
between
think
their
almost by
media
getting
image.
that out of them. Slayer
Yeah.
talks about that. They're like,
Yeah.
if we didn't make music, we would be in jail.
See, there's no warning for YouTubers that they need to, that there's work they need to do to maintain a private identity and a private self off camera, right?
Yeah.
Like I look at young like TikTok
Right.
influencers and shit who are spilling their guts about their real self and showing the world who I really am every single video.
You don't know who you are.
And there's and there's no
I
you
don't know who I
left
am.
over. There's no you left over to be a human being walking around on the street anonymous after
Yeah.
all is said and done, right? Yeah.
It's
like,
oh yeah. Well, the
Really
TikTok
well
stuff
put.
is interesting because it's so vulnerable that it's almost like you do question the integrity of it.
oh yeah.
As somebody who works extensively with human beings, I do watch the performances on TikTok, which that's what they are, they're performances.
Mhm.
And I do question, like, this is not real, but people think that it's real. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a value judgment. I do understand that, of course.
No, it is.
But
it's a new reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because here's the other couple. Selling out pressed to an extreme flips into socialism, communism, suicide, and drug addiction, and then Disney forever. So
Disney forever.
Disney
So
forever.
we really did good with that tetrad because we had a big vastness to what you touched on, Clinton. That's really important in you too, Rob, is identity. So, McLuhan has this great line that violence is a quest for identity. And it was reinforced by Christian Murdy that, why do we have to have identity? What is identity? How do we form identity? I mean, each of you have named your podcast a certain name that helps form who you are by your name. James Joyce said it in Finnegan's Wake: love thy label as thyself. That's TikTok. That's Joyce invented TikTok in disguise as a book. Love thy TikTok as thyself. They love their TikToks because they think it's themselves. And Joyce is making fun of it, saying you have to love your label, love your name, or at least the way I interpret it, love your name because that's who you are. You're not your name. That's just something that got.
Who's that Jim Croce song? I've got a name. I've got a name. You know that one?
No.
Okay, I'll send it to you. It's an amazing song.
So, anyways, let's go into this because I think it's an extension of this whole idea of selling out is narcissism as narcosis. So, narcotic means numbness, the word in Greek. So narcissism, it means like a certain thing in our society. People think they know what, oh, you're narcissist. You love yourself too much. And what McLuhan said is, no, Narcissus was so numbed by the image of himself reflected in the water. So here's an extension. we look at water and then we invent mirrors. We don't need mirrors. We already have a mirror when you can look at a water at a certain angle. So Narcissus is numbed by his image of himself reflected in the water. He did not realize he was looking at himself. He was drugged that the image outside him was somebody else. He did not fall into love with his own image. He thought it was somebody else, but we don't think this, that our inventions extend us. We think that our inventions are not us. So you both say, no, TikTok is not who you are. But the kids think that is who they are.
Sure.
It is their identity. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is all.
I mean, Nexopia, right? Clinton, how old are you?
32.
Oh,
So-
you're the same age as me. So you remember Nexopia, right?
Yeah, vaguely. That was like,
it was like the protean to Facebook.
Mhm.
And you'd have this page and you'd put things up there that were you.
right.
You know, so you'd have pictures of your favorite bands up there.
Yeah.
You'd have quotes from your favorite movies up there. You were trying to sell who you were, ideally, in this page. And that, like Jerry says, it's no different than what the kids are doing on TikTok. It's just a different form.
Right. It's what we're doing now. This Zoom is an extension of us. So it's the Wizard of
For
Us.
sure.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That is 1939 when Finnegan's Wake came out. The movie Wizard of Oz came out. And so I'd love Clinton to go into this. Like we are Narcissus as Narcosis. We buy a car not from the ad because later when we see the ad, it reinforces us. That's advertising. That is this whole idea of what's selling out. I'm becoming an ad. I'm becoming an ad. So, you know, there's a lot of layers to this whole advertising thing. We protect ourselves from our numbing. When we buy a car, we cut our legs off. We amputate our legs and the car becomes our legs. So
Right.
You
Yeah.
go ahead. You know, Clinton, you put it in your words. This is a chapter in Understanding Media, Narcissism as Narcosis. Go ahead.
Yeah. I can get there. What I'm thinking of immediately though is a new book. It's a collection of essays by a researcher, Olia Lialina. She's in Europe, who she studies GeoCities websites, especially in early
GeoCities
internet
websites.
culture, like early web culture, I should say. So explicitly, people making their own websites in the 90s and learning HTML and doing all these kooky things before the homogenization of social media, where everyone's profile looks the same with a different drag and drop background image, right?
So we're talking early 2000s.
Yeah, late 90s,
about 2007,
early 2000, right up until the
iPhone.
She's got an essay called "From My to Me," and so in the 90s, most people's home pages were a home page. This is my home on the internet. Here's the link of the stuff that I like. This is my home on the internet, and there'd be a picture of a house, right, or something, because that's what having your own homepage was, right? And then gradually, the language of homemade websites changed so that by the early 2000s, it was from my to me. It became, this is me. And you go to the website and it's just, here's me. Here's all about me. Here's the things I like. Here are my favorite links. And it becomes, instead of the website as being a place, which is like you said, Jerry, Narcissus didn't know that his extensions were himself. Right. So it's like, yeah. So when it started, the homepage, people were like, yeah, here's a place that I made for myself on the internet. And then it took like a decade for them to slowly come into awareness of like, no, this is me on the internet. Like, I am this. This website is an extension of myself, became explicit slowly through a gradual cultural change and awareness. Uh,
But that now how say the name of her again. What's her
uh,
name?
Olia Lealina. So that's Olialina.
And what's her
So
book called?
It's a new book. It's free online. Turing Complete User,
Turing, like Alan Turing?
like Alan Turing. Like she's
Turing
saying,
complete.
Turing Complete User. She's like, people who own Turing Complete machines need to have the responsibility of being Turing Complete users to be responsible owners of their Turing Complete machines, right? So she's advocating for a culture of people who are Turing Complete to match the machines that they're in control of.
Yeah.
Jerry, you know what you ask that question all the time is thinking a function of the soul, or but you
Well,
you
that's
mentioned Alan Watts.
you
No,
have
but you mentioned Alan
no,
Turing.
you have you have ESP because that's what I was gonna have us go into
Okay.
when we go out of this narcissism
Mm-hmm.
as narcosis. But we can go into it now if you want.
Well,
You
okay,
know,
I'll just say the McLuhan's whole point about numbing with our
Yeah.
extensions is just that like cats have whiskers to feel the boundaries of the narrow places that they're going through to know whether their bodies will fit
Mhm.
or not, right? Their whiskers give them a sense of their body, and as the more stuff we have, the more we lose touch or have a need for our body's basic physical sensory sensations at all. We become numb to our bodies, and he's saying that about television and the telephone in the 60s and 70s. But we've got all sorts of people today with body dysmorphia. You got anorexics. Anorexia was a huge problem among young women on the internet 15 years ago, right? People who are so intensely focused on who they are in an external image of themselves, or in an external representation of themselves, or in the buttons that are on their knapsack, or the patches of all the bands they like on their
Yeah.
punk shirt, right? There's so much who I am is in this inert matter that they're not spending a lot of time just in their bodies as themselves, you know?
I'm going to interject
Yes.
in that, because you brought something up about eating, but body dysmorphia,
Yeah.
anorexia, bulimia, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oftentimes people that, I've worked with, case studies, things like that, oftentimes it's them trying to exert control over their own lives. They
Right.
feel like they don't have control, so they modify their bodies.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
something there to the
Well,
extensions here, right?
yeah,
Like there's just this idea of, I want to have control over my own life,
they think they're exerting
right?
control over their bodies, but they're exerting control over the measuring tape and the scale. They're exerting control over the numbers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the measurement.
And thus losing further control of real control, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, tricks to
Because they're being
smoke a
consumed
cigarette.
by
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna
measuring
eat some
tape.
ice cubes to satiate my feeling of hunger, and I'm gonna smoke a
Yeah.
cigarette to satiate my feeling of hunger. They're getting control over not having to feel their bodies.
By relinquishing their own freedoms.
Yeah.
In a way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, go back
Yeah.
to how much freedom have I relinquished fucking having my, that's actually a pretty cool shot right there. With Clinton in there. But how much of my own control, my own freedom have I relinquished to have that thing?
Yeah.
Like what's the services and disservices? I could find anything I want on that thing right there in a split second. Arguably so. But
Yes.
at what's the Faustian, like, and we've touched on this in Selling Out. The name says it all. The Faustian deal here. What are the Faustian aspects
So
of selling out and technology?
Yeah, well, yeah, when you're sitting at a bar and you want to start a conversation or a fight with someone over a fact or whether or not it's true or not, and then as soon as someone pulls out a phone to check, it kind of ruins the game, it ruins the conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to remember the name of, what's the name of the lead singer of this band? It's like, oh yeah, I got it. It's a game. You want to spend 45 minutes trying to come up with it on your own, and the asshole who pulls out his phone and looks it up and shouts out,
what are the hidden psychic effects of that?
He ruins it. I'm here for a night at the bar. I'm not here for a night at home to look.
But how does that alter your brain and the functionality of your brain? Because is it the hippocampus that's shrinking in human beings? Is that the region of the brain?
Oh, heck, I'm not
There's a
that
region of
not
the
that
brain
versed.
that
Yeah.
is decreasing in size, and I think
Mhm.
it's the hippocampus, and that's what we use for navigation. That's
Mhm.
why I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm probably wrong about
Yeah.
everything, but cab drivers, they have larger hippocampuses because they have to know where they're going in the world and
Sure.
driving
Well,
around.
yes.
So our ability to just, quick hand this thing
Yep.
and use that, how is that changing our
Imagine
neural
it.
connections?
Yeah.
I wonder.
Imagine if
I wonder. I
yeah.
just mean that
Well,
as a
Jerry wouldn't have had the chance to be like, "Oh, that's Andrew Dice Clay that you're talking about," right?
yeah.
He wouldn't have had the chance to jump into the conversation with something I was forgetting, right? Just the socialization which is lost, and then if you make it so that you always keep one foot in the cyber world,
Yes.
you never reach the real. You can't turn. It's like you're keeping one finger in that magical portal to everything at all times, just in case you need it, like a tether or a leash or a safety or a, it's like. I won't play on the playground unless
It's
the
an
yard
augmentation.
supervisors are out. So, it's like,
Yeah.
I won't let my kid go for a walk around the block, unless they've got their tracking device on them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and there's a
Go
million things.
outside, but take your cell phone with you.
Yeah.
And be back
Yeah.
before dawn.
Yeah. Right. There's a million things.
It rises stress. Our friends, this was 10 years ago. They both had cell phones. They're high school kids in New York City. And they said their mom had huge stress increase when the kids were in the subway because the parent couldn't reach them on the cell phone.
Oh, goodness.
So the stress level rise. So you're saying, how does it shape your behavior? Still, cell phones increase stress in parents because they think they have to always know where their kid is. When we were growing up, our parents didn't track us. We just ran out, played all through the evening, and got home at 7 or 8 or whenever we were supposed
It's
to
like
be.
having the curfew, and maybe it was a strict curfew, but having the injunction be home at 10 meant before 10, I don't give a shit. Do whatever you want.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So it is like the service and disservice is important, because it's funny how the whole conversation went full circle, because we brought up this thing called selling out, and then going into narcissism as narcosis is, did we sell out by inventing things? Because humans sold out in a way. And I always say
100%. Yeah.
right. And but we were probably destined or innate to invent extensions of us,
Oh, yeah.
because and so there's something in the whole system here.
Dude.
That's like
Yeah.
that 2 Mobius strips on the cover of the McLuhan book explaining the tetrad. It's just like these 2, I say it's 2 Mobius strips, but in actuality, it's 1 Mobius strip that's actually molded into 2. But it's one thing going around and round, or it's like
Mm.
is human progress cyclical or cumulative? Are we going in circles, or are we getting better or worse? Well, it's probably a cone, and sometimes we're getting better and sometimes we're getting worse. And we're making a value judgment there, but it's how do you shift, and how do you what Clinton set up was a perfect example. Then you could go, well, let me whip out my cell phone at the bar and find out how many minutes we wasted in our camaraderie drinking beers by you knowing that name. There's a statistic. We could have had fun for 40 minutes not having our cell phones. So for the next 40 minutes, no one can whip out their cell phone because of the statistic I just got on my cell phone. So then you make some sort of rule. So this thing about sold out is like, are we being numbed? That's the reinterpretation Marshall had to step out and say, no, narcissism means something different. There's another interpretation of it, that we're not paying attention to the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we can cope with them. What we don't like, so we can cope with what we don't like. You don't like that, Clinton, in the bar. How are you going to cope with it? Well, then turn to the artist, and they're selling out to reveal how you can cope. And, that's why the one person said Patti Smith's luggage could have been filled with books. So she's going down the street and she's giving out symbolist poetry books in Finnegan's Wake out of her, that's what the ad should have been. Her book,
all the things you can carry with you with our fine,
all the good
our
books,
luggage.
all the books she could, promote for kids to read, are coming out of her luggage. But they didn't do that. You can look at the ad, and there's a whole ad on the internet about the ad, like a whole, all the other 5 biggie people they recruited to sell their luggage. So
what company is this? That got
I'm
them
not
to
even
sell their
going to
luggage?
repeat their name. You're going to post it on Instagram and
Yeah.
put the link on this.
Is it like Louis Vuitton or something like that?
It's like, can you see it right there?
Generic.
I don't know anything about anything. So
there, you can't see it good. It's bad font. It's bad art design. So I don't want to repeat their name.
That's a value judgment, Jerry.
It is a value. But here's the question, and it's funny you brought this up because you must have ESP. So Alan Turing says, is thinking a function of the soul? So that's the question. Funny that Clinton brought up Turing, and then
so do we put the soul in technology? Our humanness does our humanness give technology soul?
Well, that's a really good question. The question is what does what invention extends the soul? So the first question we'll start with you, Rob. Is thinking a function of the soul?
I mean, we're making an agreement then that the soul exists.
Well, that's
in that question.
Most people, since I started asking that question, most people immediately delve into what is the soul. They don't want to answer the question. The guy yesterday, Jeffrey Balance, he answered. I forgot how, but it was great. He said yes or no.
Oh, that guy was amazing.
Yeah.
That guy's a dude.
Yeah, I mean, no, he's a very smart artist because he didn't really make art that he says, wow, I can become rich and famous.
He intentionally didn't sell out.
He got famous, but you can't sell what he infiltration art is hard to sell. Like, here's an example, Clinton.
Blinky or whatever, yeah.
He dressed up like a janitor. He went into the major art museum in LA and looking like he worked as a janitor, an electronic janitor, changed all the wall sockets. In the wall sockets had little designs on them that he designed. Then he invited all his friends to see his art show at the art museum, and it was on the electrical wall
sockets.
So he infiltrated illegally, and so then he buried a chicken that he bought at the grocery store at a pet museum in honor of all the pets, like pet chickens that weren't treated as pets, they were eaten. So it's infiltration art.
That was Blinky, right?
Yeah, Blinky. He infiltrates popular culture, and that's his art form. Now you can't sell that, but he has been able to have an amazing career.
Right.
So now, how are you going to answer that, Rob? Yes or no? Is thinking a function of the soul? You put the soul into the concept you want. I mean, you can answer with a question, but just overall, would you, your guess, your inclination?
I don't know. I feel almost as if feeling is a function of the soul.
Good. Let's leave it at that. Go ahead, Clinton.
I know. Well, okay. So one thing is that there are authorities one can appeal to for us, very precise definitions of anything like the soul, but it's esoteric knowledge, right? So it's hard to say. I'm funny. My books, right? I love to use books as props. Like I'll read them, but they're so much more fun to just wave around in the conversation, right? Right? It's a huge narcissistic high, right? So I'm like, well,
Yeah.
there we
Look
go.
at
Well,
me.
if you would just read Aristotle's On the Soul,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't know all about it. Yeah, exactly. Look at that. Ooh, Finnegan's Wake. Big,
It's a
you got a real big book.
2021.
But
Damn.
what you just said was good.
Right?
Clint. You said something that you said, is thinking a function of the soul, and then you said what
Yes.
you sort of defined soul as could be.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think thinking is a function of the soul if you go
Right.
along with what the soul
Esoteric
is.
knowledge.
Yes, you
Right,
know,
right, okay.
with
So
what people, right? But really what this line of thinking has brought up for me is a book I just read. Won a Pulitzer Prize in 1981. It's Terry Kitter's Soul of a New Machine, which
yeah,
is about a mini computer company designing a new computer from scratch, and they had an investigative journalist come to their computer company every day and watch them and document how a computer is made from beginning to end. So it's a drama of these various characters and their leadership styles, and the engineers, and some of the engineers go crazy and can't take it anymore because it's crunch time and stuff, right? But it's all the human relation to an extremely complex machine that's like over top of, like, they're halfway done building it, and it's like, okay, now no human can understand this anymore, and all we can do is sort of like try to work the bugs out and figure out what's going on, but this is now too complex for any of us now. And the human drama is these people hunting around this machine, which is small and it's like a prototype, and there's wires sticking out everywhere, and they're just like trying to figure out what's going on inside of it because they don't understand anymore, and try to figure out, well, why these tests are working, or why we fix this and that breaks this, right? And it's like them fighting with each other, and them like promising their bosses like, oh yeah, we'll be ready by April for sure, we'll be ready by April, no problem. Like, oh my god, how are we gonna be ready by April? Holy crap, right? And it's
is that
all
fiction or nonfiction?
no, it's a literal, it's a journalistic documentation of a development of a computer from scratch to
Right.
floor room
It's
product over the course of like years, right?
It's nonfiction.
Yeah, it's a nonfiction
right.
Pulitzer Prize investigative journalism book.
Let's interview Tracy. So
Right. Yeah.
before we, Clint,
just so the soul of the machine, I think, is in the human origins of the machine, right? And I guess that's where I'm going with this. Yes.
Yeah, that's good, because what you said was drama was good. I've always inquired, and you've heard me ask many times, McLuhan's 4 words: the drama of cognition.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are, we're saying, is thinking a function of the soul? I always go,
the drama of cognition.
If you invent cognition, if you invent thinking,
yeah,
you bet there's going to be drama.
Yeah, the other phrase, what is getting at, is the stages of apprehension.
What do those 2 phrases mean? Drama of connection and stages of
the stages of the drama of cognition is to go through, is to witness the story, or like the stages of apprehension. So the stages of apprehension are staring at a thing and figuring out what you're looking at, or being in the movement of apprehending a thing from 0 to 100. I don't know what's going on. Okay, I understand what's going on. McLuhan says that what the artist does, the artist has the unique capability to have an epiphany, to apprehend something. They're in a new situation, and then they go, oh, I know what's going on now. But then they've got the self-awareness to somehow remember that experience, dissect it, take it apart, and then stage it as a drama, the drama of cognition. And they can create an art piece that now other people can replay the stages of apprehension through this externalized drama of the cognition that they put into their art.
That is really well put, Clinton. That really nails it. So we're coming to a close here, but this has been an amazing session. Now, the soul, everything humans invent extends some humanness.
Mm-hmm.
So we invented selling out.
Yes.
what humanness does it extend? And let's agree that we invented the word soul. What humanness does it extend? So knife and fork extends our teeth. Electricity might extend our central nervous system. There's a pattern. The eyelid is like what does the shutter in a camera or a projector extend is our eyelid.
Mhm.
So we'll start with you, Clinton. What does the soul extend? What humanness?
Um, the 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 common sense, which I'm trying to say, it's like the it extends the body as the interplay of all the senses together. So
Ooh.
whatever your sight and your hearing and your touch and whatever, that all comes together as the unified thing that puts you in your body, right? So the body's extended through the soul. If the soul is the body extended in by our senses integrating into the whole, which is the world, And so it extends the world into the body, right? I guess let's put it that way.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, Rob, what does the soul extend? What humanness? That was good, Clint.
Well, I mean, just to kind of bring it back to this, soul, sold out, like you're out of soul.
Mhm.
I think it extends our identity. And if I sell my soul away, I've given up my identity.
What do people get out of soul music?
Yeah, that's the five senses. You're dancing, and it is identity. It's who you are. Yeah, that was really good. But now this is the bigger flip. Is
Oh,
you've told me what soul extends. What does selling out extend? What humanness does selling out extend?
avarice,
Oh,
What's the word?
avarice, like our insatiable appetite for money and wealth, and
yeah.
thou shall not covet. I mean, hey, that made it onto the list. I think number 9 or number 10
Mhm.
in the Great Commandments. Why would that be on there? There's something about humanness, and just look at all these books that I own.
Mhm.
Look at all these things that I have acquired and that I
Mhm.
want to show off. There's something to be said about coveting and humanness.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't get the word avarice. What is that?
Avarice, yeah.
How do you
Avarice.
spell it?
I'm never saying these big
How do
words
you
right,
spell it?
Jerry.
Averice.
Okay, avarice. Okay. Now that was good, Clinton. I mean, Rob. Now, Clinton. What
Mm.
does selling out extend? What humanness?
Like a need for security.
Yeah, you
Like
guys.
like if you do this, it's a sure thing. Don't worry. All right. The experts have know just what you have to do to maintain your
Follow these
need.
10 steps.
Yeah, follow exactly.
But I think closing out would be great here. So there's Patty Smith. She's in this ad. Look at that smile. She looks happy and content with her braided long gray hair and her hat. She's got 2 kids and she's got books on the best-selling list. What did she think she was going to become when she was 20, like 20, 30 years ago? Did she go, someday I'll be in the New York Times selling luggage? Or someday they'll be calling me the punk godmother? So,
What do young YouTube influencers think they're going to be in 30, 40 years?
right. Well, this is the big question. You're up first, Clinton.
Well, what do
What do you,
skateboarders
yeah,
want to be in 15 years? They want to be sponsored by a cool skateboarding brand explicitly.
yeah.
Right? Like skateboarding as a cultural phenomenon is young enough to where it took for granted. It's not you can't there's no authentic skateboarding for the selling out as a skateboarder to be a selling out from, right? There's only a skateboard and maybe I'll get a sponsorship and maybe I'll be able to keep doing it and maybe right, and it's actually part of the sport of skateboarding is the branding of these underground companies and
You want to sell out.
you want to
Yeah,
sell out, but
dude,
there is no like punk skateboarding that's against that that I'm aware of. I think the whole
that's
culture it's not selling out because there was no like earnest sort of like homegrown skateboarding that was all organic and
It was. There was.
uncontaminated.
Clint, you touched
Yeah.
on it. It says right there, Venice, California. So in Venice,
Hmm.
California, if you
Thank you,
see
Jared.
if
Oh,
you
it's a
see the
Dogtown.
movie, if you see the movie Dogtown, the documentary,
Uh-huh.
I love it. It's got a great soundtrack. It's all these subversive kids who went to the uh, swimming pools in Beverly Hills because there was no rain and there was no water, and used them to invent a subversive art that eventually became I can become Tony Hawk and
Great.
self and
Right.
not drug out like the ones that drugged out. They don't give them much time in the movie. But they don't give you because the guy Stacy Perlotto who made the film was basically promoting a product, skateboard stuff. Buy it. And the movie's good, but my friend said, yeah, but it homogenized a subversive art. And I went,
Okay.
so well put.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
and it was good that when you brought it up because it's what you said.
It homogenized a
Now, here's the
art.
question. Yeah, it homogenized subversive art.
Breaking into swimming pools. Well,
yeah, and no, it wasn't.
To find cooler ramps to
didn't-
go around in.
They
Yeah.
didn't do surfboard moves on skateboards yet. They did surfboard moves on surfboards. Then they invented skateboards and they go, oh, we can do surfboard moves on skateboards. So they invented this subversive art. They were hippie kids, just gutter punks into having fun. And they sort of invented a sort of new phenomenon.
Yeah.
But here's the question to close out. Clinton, you're up first. What do you see for identity and who we are? What do you see yourself doing in 10 years?
Oh,
And that goes
man.
to you, Rob, too.
That's very dim. That's
Snipe.
very dim. Seriously. Oh goodness.
Be positive, Clinton. You're a good human. You're
Well, okay.
Your
well,
future's bright.
it would be something analogous to having fun playing with kids while singing songs about death and gore and gouging people's eyes out in public.
great.
Something analogous to that split.
Yeah,
I will be a private person while still, contributing to the
Mm.
crazy animal zoo that is popular culture somehow.
Right. Marshall's children. Martial law and Marshall's children. Okay, Rob, what do you want to see yourself doing in 10 years?
Well, apparently a story goes that John Lennon, when he was in grade 2, his teacher asked him, John, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so the story goes, John said, I want to be happy. And the teacher said, well, no, like an occupation. Like, I don't think you understand the question. And young John in grade 2 said, I don't think you understand the question.
Oh, of course.
And to which I say, bullshit, he's in grade 2. He didn't have that conversation. He's 7 years old.
Everyone in the class stood up and applauded at that point.
Yeah. Just imagine if we were all happy. Bullshit. That conversation never happened. I don't believe it.
No.
That was a great answer too, because I asked when I'm a guest lecturer, as the students are walking in, I go up to each one of them. I hand them a flyer and I go, what are you aspiring to be or do in your life? And they'll go 3D animator, video editor. And this one woman said, a good person. And I went, that's a great answer. The other favorite answer was a role model. She wanted to go back to her small town and show these kids that they could become animators or whatever. What were you going to say, Rob? Yeah.
Well, what do you want to be in where do you want to be?
Yeah,
in
you
10
never
years?
put the questions on me. I want to be alive. Long as Louis Buñuel
with
says,
your spirit, man, you're going to be around a long time.
Long live the living. That's
how come, Jerry? I mean, I admire you. And Clinton and I, we admire you. How come you never sold out?
What's your secret?
That is a good question. That is a good. Nobody asked me these questions.
You can't get away from us.
No, I think that's a
We got you surrounded.
Yeah.
Rob, I think that's a very good question, but I wouldn't want to ruin it with an answer. No, yeah, I don't know. It's just I got lucky. What can I say? Maybe it's luck. Yeah. But you know, I played the game and had normal jobs a little, but you know, I really got lucky. So
You've had normal jobs.
I don't know how it happened. Believe me, I do not know how it happened that I didn't, you know, like really have to slave a job away for a lot of my life. But in essence, there's a lot going on here. Like Clinton has his job. He doesn't use so much brain cells. Then he can go home and use his hardcore brain cells for his real work. Then, you know, that there's a lot to this full range. Like you use, you know, it's how you process stress and anxiety and energy, and it's called time management, basically. So our time is up, ladies and gentlemen. I really want to thank you guys. This was beyond what I imagined. We didn't sell out. Oh, and Suzy wants to sing her sellout song.
No.
Oh, hey,
Hi, Suzy.
Suzy.
I just want to say that was so much fun. You guys are so smart, and I got a kick out of both of you. And I just love your brains, and I learned stuff. So
Well, we got to have you on the show
Sing a
one
little of
time.
your sellout song. Suzy wrote a song about selling out.
It's no. Okay.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah.
Well, and no, it's vaguely on the subject. It just has to do with show
Well, we
business.
love vaguity, so
Huh?
we love vagueness. Yeah.
The great song was that Tom Lear.
Yeah, there's a Tom
Yeah.
Lear song called "Selling Out" too.
No, Jerry's got to
Yeah.
give you a copy of that.
Yeah.
And then this is nothing. This is just tiny ditty, but anyway, it's a little bit of my life. I've no monetary value, ain't worth a dime, ain't worth a sou. I've no monetary value. That's true for me. How about you? There was a time I couldn't give it away. Everyone insisted that they wanted to pay. But now I've no monetary value. And now I'm just as blue as I can be.
Yay!
Woo!
William, thank you.
Beautiful. Love it.
That had everything to do with this. Now that's full circle.
That's full
Awesome.
circle.
I wish I could sell out.
You brought it home. You brought it home.
We all wish we could. Sell out, everybody. Sell your soul. All
Okay,
right.
gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. That was fun.